All right, welcome back to the Artist Connection podcast. This is Matt Kesar, calling over to France today to speak to a literal music legend, Mr. Jim McCarty. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. This is, you already made my day and we barely started, so thank you for that.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah, I've owned your records my whole life, really, and I'll get into that a little bit, but you popped up a bunch of times in the past couple weeks in my life that I couldn't ignore it, and I wanted to reach out to you and invite you on, and I can't thank you enough for joining me. But I was in a record store. I still go to record stores, and today is record store day. So.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
So a couple weeks ago, I was going through my local record store, and I came across the Box of Frogs album, the first one.
Yes.
And I have both, but I was with a friend, and I pulled it out immediately and said, oh, you must have this, right? You have this. So we started talking about the band, and then, of course, the Yardbirds and you. And then a week or two after that, I was going through YouTube. I was going down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos, and I came across some Yardbird stuff from the early 60s. It was black and white from probably BBC television, you know, and
yes.
you guys were doing Train Kept A-Rollin'. You know, and of course you see Jimmy Page, but then as I'm watching this thing, I'm thinking, look at that drummer though. Look at Jim McCarty go, and it just says something about you when there's a band of, you know, especially Jimmy Page has gone on and just to rock fans he's become, you know, this guitar god, this guitar legend. But to see those early days and just to see you driving the train, you're the one keeping the train rolling.
Yeah.
God,
right.
I had to talk to you. I thought all roads are pointing to Jim McCarty. I got to get this guy on the phone, so thank you.
Well, it did take a bit of energy, and you know, I still play now, and I still need that energy. So, and I seem to have it. So I was very fortunate.
Well, thank God for that, because you're the man that keeps it moving.
Yes.
Not only the band, and not only the legend, and not only the name, but geez, the music. I mean, a name is one thing. I mean, you could have rested on your laurels at the end of the 60s and still had a huge musical output and a huge career, but you kept on, and you've been giving us music ever since.
Well, I enjoy it. You know, I really music's become my life, and I really love it. And I love to sing as well, and I love to create stuff and write music. And I'm in a nice place to do it. You know, down here in France, it's a beautiful landscape, and I love going out to nature and walking around and getting ideas for tunes and different songs, and that seems to keep going on.
Back then, when you were a young man starting out, did you ever dream that this was going to be a lifelong career?
Not at all, no. In fact, I think we thought it was going to end after a couple of years, and I remember because I used to work in the stock exchange in London, and when I started with the band, I was playing every night, and it was very exhausting. And I went to my boss and I said, "Well, I'm in this band, and I'm going to have to leave my job, you know, but in a couple of years, will I be able to get my job back?"
I'll keep the suits, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he said, "Yes, of course." Of course, I never looked back from there.
So for a while there, you were straddling two worlds. You're dressed up in the business suit during the day, and then you put on a different suit by night, right?
Yes, that was quite something. It was quite tiring. I had incredible long days, you know.
Yeah, I bet you did.
But that something there had to change, and of course that was all new in those days. Like, you know, being in a band,
right?
That was totally something else. Totally different way of life, and everyone saw a job, you know, a job for life. If you were in an office, you worked, had an office job somewhere, like I was in the stockbrokers. You know, that was considered a job until I was 60.
Well, I mean, people must have looked at you, because you're right. That was such a new career. I guess we take for granted now, 50 years on, that, well, of course these guys are legends, or of course we're still talking about them. But in those early days of the 60s, it must have just been like, what do you mean you're going to be in a band? I mean, what does that even mean? Yes,
and particularly my mother, she couldn't really understand that at all. And not until I was appearing on the TV did she really get the hang of it.
Oh, yeah. Were your folks supportive after that? Did they feel that this could be something you could stick with?
As soon as we had a hit, there was just my father died when I was quite young, but I was just an only child living with my mum.
Oh.
And but she was fine. As soon as I was on the TV, she went and told the neighbours, and then she was, quite happy about it carrying on as long as I was in the charts.
Sure. You were born in 1943, which when I talk to guys from your generation, boy, that's the sweet spot if you want to be a 19 or 20-year-old musician in those early 60s. I mean, you had just enough time to be influenced by, well, you can tell me what your influences were, but early rock and roll and what was going on around you and what was going on in America, and now you're old enough to make a name for yourself and do it yourself.
Well, yeah, and you said the words there, what was going on in America, that was what was important to us. In the sort of foggy old London, which was a bit dismal and a bit sort of grey, and the thought of coming in, being in sunshine and going to see where all the westerns took place and all the gangster movies, it was really special to us.
And it's funny how we were looking right back across, and I still do. I mean, England and Europe to me is just a land of mystery and musical history and history that I would love to get over there again someday. But you guys are looking right back at us and getting influenced by what we're doing.
Yeah, well, that was the big thing for us. Maybe not so much these days, although I do. I still love to come to America. I still love America very much. But that was the big thing with all us kids in London. The American movies and the American culture, that was special.
When you got over here for the first time, did it live up to that? What was your first stop when you first came to America?
We stopped in New York, and I remember Jeff Beck and I, we shared a room in a big hotel, up on the 40th floor or something. And the first thing was we got in the room, we looked out the window, we saw all the cars going by, and Jeff was saying, "Oh, look at all those fantastic cars." All those great American cars that we loved, they were really special for us in those days.
And what was touring like? It was probably a lot different. It probably evolved as time went on through your career, but those early days, was it pretty hectic? Would you do more than one show a day and then get in the van or get in the bus and move on to the next one?
Well, sometimes, yeah, we it was up and down. Sometimes, we'd fly everywhere and we'd have to walk, through the airports and be on planes all the time. And other times we were on a bus or a Greyhound bus. We did a horrible tour once. It was the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars tour, and that was often more than one gig a night.
Mm.
And we'd all the bands on the tour would all be on the one Greyhound bus. It was very tough. But most of the time of the 60s, we were playing every night, at least one night a week.
And how far did the tour extend? Did you go all the way across the country, or was it a little East Coast kind of thing?
Well, the Dick Clark tour, I think that was mainly, that sort of went down south. That was all in the southern states, which were, was slightly behind everyone else. So we didn't play in the big cities like New York or LA. So that was even tougher, playing to that sort of audience that was slightly, slightly the countryside, But we did all the main cities. I think we just about did everywhere in the States. Yeah, and they were 6 weeks long, I think, the tours in those days. 6-week tours, pretty well full on. All the money we were making was all on the road. Was all from the gigs. There was no real record company backup.
Right.
Like there was later on, and the record royalties were very small, like 2%. So it was a different sort of scene to the 70s and 80s when it started to the record business suddenly expanded and the albums were selling millions. It wasn't like that in the 60s.